Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Marketing 101 for Chiropractors. Awesome guest this week. Corey Morris from Voltage is going to dive into why you need to have a plan when you market. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got into this. Many people know my story. I'm a chiropractor, and then I kind of forced myself into marketing with frustration. So it's more of a second thing for me. But what about you? How'd you get into this whole marketing for medium and large businesses?
Yeah, this is not where I thought I would be if I look back to growing up. I'm one in my family essentially has doctor in their title except for me, and I broke the trend, even a generational one, by going to business school. So I ended up coming out of school with a marketing degree, but that was really when a lot of things digitally were blowing up. This is the 20th year of my career. So think back to 2005 when things were still hard coded and we were still in a much earlier version of the web compared to now. And navigated my way through being a project manager, learning how to code basically, and then into search engine optimization and broader digital marketing as we then went from internet and online marketing to calling it digital and rallying around that term probably about 15 years ago as well. And so through that journey, I became an entrepreneur as well, went from employee to owner. Um, my journey in the business world is not one that I would have ever predicted of how it went. But now own a digital agency called Voltage, own a company called Digital Marketing Success Plan. And I know we'll get into unpacking some of that as well, but we help, as you mentioned, businesses of a range of sizes in our focus and expertise within digital marketing and building websites for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've seen it. I mean, you've seen the struggles, you've seen the problems, you've seen the leaky buckets, all in marketing, and that's why you're here today. We're going to talk about it. And the thing I love about it is the digital marketing success plan, the plan that you've laid out in 5 steps that tells us what to do before we actually do it. Maybe some organization gets us a little bit further and a little bit deeper into the goals that we're trying to attain. So let's dive into that. Where do you think most let's be specific with healthcare and chiropractic and, physical therapy and that stuff, those types of brick and mortar facilities that do hands-on services, where should they start when building a plan around marketing?
Yeah. Naturally, we want to gravitate toward like, let's do the action. Like, what do we see somebody else doing, or where do we think our audience is? And we don't necessarily go as far as we need to in validating how this makes us money, or to work backwards from what our end goal is of what we want in our practice. And those goals can be different and should be different for every individual practice or business. Of, do I want to grow and scale? Am I in an aggressive mode? Do I want to bring on partners? Do I want to bring on more practitioners? Do I want to make this thing 10x what it is now, or open more locations, whatever it is? Or do I want to operate as a lifestyle business and stay focused personally, hands-on on the mission of where I'm going, but be able to have focus on quality and not quantity, and make sure that I'm sustaining the thought leadership and the things that I need to do to educate my patients and to stay in front of them. And so those are two ends of the spectrum, and there's probably a myriad number of other ways and options in between of how we shape our business goals. And what marketing you do and digital marketing should be a reflection of that. So naturally, working backwards from your ultimate business goal and quantifying what the metrics are around that and understanding those is the key starting point for us before we start putting a dollar into marketing. Marketing often gets looked at any type in most types of businesses as a line item or an expense if it's not connected to an outcome or a business outcome. It's honestly something that is an investment and should expect a return on investment, just like we're putting the expectations on what we do in financial or real estate investments outside of our businesses, or even within our businesses. Looking at it that way changes and kind of gives you a different lens to look at it through, and not just look at it as a set of activities or things you have to do because someone told you should do them, but to have them be more personal with conviction connected to your mission, your goals. So starting by identifying your goals is critical. And that gets into the first part of my 5-step process of strategy and defining that strategy. And so that's really where I start with anything is what is that unique thing that we can connect and quantify? Is it more patients? Is it more, more leads that we get through the website? Is it more phone calls, more booked appointments? Or is it around reputation even or retention? And not having to go out and scale an ad if you're not trying to do that. But at the same time, a few hits to your ratings online, fair or unfair, can really have an impact as well. And so, how you quantify that is step one of business outcome, and then the marketing and digital touch points that can impact that.
Love it. Metrics are so important because without no, a lot of business owners don't look at the metrics properly. I mean, they're looking at the cash flow, collections, new patients, and basing marketing off that. And we talked about this by knowing your internal metrics, the more specific metrics, the calls, the conversions, the hard conversions in the office, both from marketing into your office, and then the conversions in your office, and what the case value average is per patient. Knowing these little things can really dictate the strategy of marketing you're going to put forward, first off. And second, the ad budget, too. Sometimes you don't need to spend as much as you think you need to, or other times you got to spend a lot more depending where you are in your business and for growth. So metrics, I love that. Great job, Corey. Great. So we start there. We understand some fundamentals about metrics, and then we decide, hey, we got to definitely market. We got to do something. Word of mouth referrals are great. They only get you so far. People only know so many people, and they're only willing to refer, they're more, isn't it true? They're more loud when you do something wrong to leave a bad review than if you do something right to actually refer for you. And
Yeah.
that's just human nature. I mean, when we give you $100 and you paint our wall for us and it looks good and you leave, we expected the wall to look good. That's why we gave you the $100. We're not going to go raving up and down the street saying this is the best painter ever. So it's an expectation when you trade that energy, right? But when you give you $100 and you do a bad job on that wall, boy, are we going to go to Google in like 3 seconds. My wife's going to be on Google in like 6 seconds, and you're going to get the worst review you've ever read. So we know that, right? So now word of mouth referral is great, but when we need something like Voltage, we hire like, hey, Voltage, help us out. Let's get going here. Let's get our SEO going. Let's get our reputation going. Let's get some more calls and people coming to our office. What's that step look like? What's planning for that?
Yeah. And so the 5-step process is an acronym called START. And this is a start to finish process and framework where there's not a magic answer, just as I talked about a minute ago, for everyone, because everyone's goals are different. Your practice is different. Your level of expertise that you want to be known for, your specialization, or how you're different from the next clinic on the corner. Even if you're friends and you went to school together and you are very similar, there is something different in your culture, your mission, your vision, your values that you want to carry forward, and your unique opportunity to serve your patients and your community. So within that, and understanding that, and having your strategy and goals, knowing that if you've quantified it to the point of knowing that I need 20 new patient leads or phone calls or booked appointments a month, then you can carry that forward into, so that's part of locking down your strategy. That's the S. The T, then you carry that forward into tactics, and this is now where we can evaluate and put anything on the table and challenge what you've been doing. Because if we are those leads available in Facebook, or through organic posting, or through ads? Are they available in Google? And even within Google, are we going to have to advertise, or do we have the content and optimization of our website and the website platform that can even, get to a point where we need it to be ranked number one organically, and in our map listings where a lot of those reviews show up, whether we like them or not, and fair or unfair, about those situations, and how have we responded to those there, and what's the visibility there, to even email marketing. And so again, if you're using this as a source of retention, as well as maybe blended with people who have found some of your content worthwhile, even if they're not a patient yet, but they found you as a resource, how can you leverage that? And so all these things, this is the chance when we're in the tactics phase to test out, or not test it out, but to go research almost anything that you can, any channel and opportunity. So if you heard about that awesome channel, it's working for somebody else, go do some research on that. There's some great free tools and affordable tools out there, where you can go validate how much traffic there is around my location, how many times people are searching for things, how many people are in its target audience. If you're doing some Facebook research or whatnot through Meta, to understand what is the real opportunity here and how many dollars might it take. To your point a minute ago of, you might need ads and you might need to really dial them up. Okay, well, how many dollars does it take to get the number of clicks? And based on some of that math we talked about a minute ago, how many does that lead through to a booked appointment, and what does that look like? And so when you've got your strategy nailed down, know what your goals are, and then you have your tactics mix, that's when everything really flows through the rest of the process as well.
Yeah, for sure. Then you can dial up and dial down on your marketing according to your business goals. After that, once you find the system that works, and that's probably the longest process is in marketing. It's a course correction all the time of trying to figure out what's working while building the background as well. SEO is forever. It's not a one-time thing. I love these people like, oh, I got to hire an SEO person to help me out. And then they're like, well, I let go of my SEO person. It wasn't working. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're always optimizing the internet for our search. What are you talking about? So they don't get that concept there as well. What are some, from a chiropractic perspective, where they're very personal based? I mean, we're not giving literally anything except a service. There's no pills, there's no injections, there's no tangible thing that they walk away with except for the service by hand, very much like physical therapy. In these types of settings, what do you feel a logical starting point or a logical marketing plan looks like for something like that?
Yeah. So if we've gone through the step of understanding, again, the business goals, and then how marketing could, and should support it, and then quantify that by the tactics and the channels and platforms we should be in. Now we get into, this leads really well into the third step of looking at its application step of looking at what assets we need. And a big part of that is what kind of content, what kind of messaging. And so this is that, how you're defining, how you show up to someone online, and what first impression you're making. And then ultimately the second impression I mentioned a moment ago, maybe there's a guide, maybe there's talking about an approach, and whether it's, what type of hands-on approach or what the experience is going to be. So there's everything from, I have pain. I've maybe never been to a chiropractor before, and this is a personal story, right? Of, I have back pain. Who do I'm Googling, I'm looking it up, and then I get a level deeper, and now I'm looking at different methods, from and different approaches from different clinics, and or now I'm getting into, does my insurance cover this, and how does this get billed? What does a plan look like? What does the first appointment look like, in the education in that, once I'm in the office, versus getting onto more of a maintenance plan of going, weekly or biweekly or whatnot too, and get it after things are in better shape, after I get through some of the acute issues. So any of that content that you have of the patient experience, you probably do that well, right? Because you know how you greet someone, welcome them through the door the first time. But it's really thinking about digitally. Yes, there's that last click. Someone's searching for, chiropractor or physical therapy near me today, right? And that's where they're looking at reviews, and they're one click or phone call away from coming into your clinic. You absolutely need to show up there and be there and put the right foot forward there. But how much further do you want to move further away from that into the education space, and be where somebody is searching by symptom, or by what causes them to think about and research where they should go before they get to the, I'm looking for a chiropractor or PT near me, where you're in a very competitive space. So there's an opportunity to get further upstream there, but that requires an understanding of what content you can produce, what commitment you can make to that, and what level of investment. When that doesn't immediately necessarily translate from click to conversion in terms of your analytics, but it supports the ecosystem. So getting an understanding of what kind of ads we need to create, what kind of landing pages we need to create, what kinds of content, and a content calendar, how many times we should be posting, are important. One of the things that I talk about often, regardless of industry, but this is one that is really critical when you're wearing multiple hats, or someone in your office is wearing multiple hats. Of, how many things are they doing? And do you understand what and why, you're posting 7 times a week on Facebook, and is it working for you or not? Or and getting that right, and making sure you understand your content calendar, or you're consistent with it and it doesn't fall off for a few months when things get busy, or we've got a staffing issue, or we've got to get caught up on billing or whatever it might be, and all of a sudden we stop doing something. So understanding how you're going to apply your strategy and your tactics, and how it's going to come to life for you, is really critical.
Yeah, great tips there. I mean, you talked about everything there. Now we're going to talk for 2 more hours on marketing, but let's keep it tight. The thing that came up for me is the value of content. So maybe from your perspective, when we're developing content, time is money. So if we're going to put effort into developing content, where do you find the highest value? Maybe let's look at from a SEO perspective. Let's, for long-term gain, how would you value the content that you create? Is creating text form blogs and putting them on a proper page on your website for Google to eat up over time the best form of content? Is it video? Is it pictures? Is it ads? Is it boosting? What is it?
Yeah, and so I'm not going to take the cheap way out here and say it depends. But there's it really, as we, and I'm going to rip off the band-aid here and say AI for the first time in the show. Yeah, and neither one of us had yet, but um, the the emergence of AI, and it has coincided with a lot of the distractions of, okay, now we had smart speakers we're talking to our phone. There's a lot of searches that have the words near me in them, because people are looking for localized content, or looking for something around them today. it, you know 5-10 years ago, all of our focus was on, what does Google think and what does Facebook think, and what do we do for those, feed those. So the job is getting harder for us now, because there are more sources, the AI sources, people asking questions in random places, and more channels than ever before. So I see it as an opportunity that we're not having to serve the Google machine and follow its rules as much. But all of that said, even though we're still playing out, and Google is still the behemoth, and Facebook is still where a lot of consumer searching and content is consumed, it's more important than ever to get out of the noise and out of the vacuum, and not just throw stuff out there, and focus on quality of content, not just the volume. It's not about saying we did our 30 posts this month and check that box and we hope it worked, but it's really to create it in a way that resonates, and to get as much feedback as we can on it. So I love video content. There are amazing stats around it, but you know and you can be found. But if it's a research topic, and you are creating that thought leadership upstream, and really trying to educate on why my back might hurt and what my options are, and to really compare and contrast, like the chiropractic approach versus a medical approach, or when PT and chiropractic, I've again been through both of them, and my back is very personal to me, because I've got what I have for the rest of my life with uh with my condition, with arthritis. But it's how much do you want to do, and where are people consuming that? If it's on YouTube, obviously it's video. If you are landing them on your page, and you're trying to explain to them and educate them, but also educate them on your practice and how your approach is different, then there's probably a mix of video and text, and you bridge that in the middle. if they have filled out a form or they're close to it or they're looking at your culture and what's different, then as much personality as you can get in there as possible and you're comfortable with. If you're not a video person, then give them a lot of, imagery and text. But in terms of what Google's looking for, I feel like we often overlook the fact that YouTube is the number 2 search engine. And so if we're creating content anywhere, I love to create it with all the channels and platforms in mind, so we can create one big meaty piece of content that we can then repurpose out and get into all the different channels. I'm not saying we should copy and paste a 700 word long blog post from our blog to Facebook, but we can take parts and pieces of that, and whether we record shorter snippet 2-minute videos off of it or have 20 posts in that given month all pointing back to it, taking kind of a cornerstone approach that we can trickle out with cobblestones, and get more return on investment for what we produce is important. So I don't necessarily think as much about format first. I'll think about content, the big piece and the messaging first, and then how we can trickle it out.
Yeah. No. And you're right. AI is here. I mean, it's just the way it is. You shouldn't ignore it. I should say you should not ignore it. Like you said, the disbursement of information is going to happen exponentially. It's happening. It's Google's no longer it's still behemoth. It's no longer the main source of information and search. Actually, as of I think January 2025, it is now ChatGPT. Gets more questions asked to it than Google. So that's an issue. Now, how do you rank in there? So there's a whole bunch of things there, but AI is the only way to really help you disperse as much information as you possibly can across as many channels as possible in a realistic fashion. There's just no way to do it, especially as a solo entrepreneur. It's just not going to happen. So you're going to have to use AI tools to move forward. So now this is where I leave it to you. You guys are using AI in marketing. Again, from our perspective, what are some great ways to just maybe get started on this, or to look into not specific AI channels, but how to really globally look at AI and be like, how can I use it to maximize productivity and get content out there on a regular basis?
Yeah, and I always give the quick disclaimer that AI is probably the one of the most misunderstood or undefined things. So right, it's woven into a lot now, because every software developer had to say that they were leveraging it. So it's woven into a lot of the different third-party tools that we use. It's built into now the search results from Google, and ChatGPT has its own, OpenAI has its own search function as well. But then we can natively use it, right? And so my favorite one still to this day is ChatGPT, because I've spent so much time training it that it's hard for me to go re-platform, and I'll test the others, but it's hard for me to go, start over in others. The challenge is, no matter where you are in terms of your own use of it, the challenge is, I have friends who are on the leading edge of building software leveraging AI in their custom models, and we have our own here in my agency, but everybody feels like they're behind, right? And there's this crazy imposter syndrome, and we all feel like we're not there. So the people on the bleeding edge of it that I know feel like they're behind somebody else. Somebody who hasn't touched it yet because they're busy running their successful business also probably feels some level of being behind, unless you're just writing it off entirely. But regardless, I find that a lot of people are wired one of two ways. Either I chase the shiny object and I'm super into that new tech thing, the next phone, the next piece of hardware, the next piece of software. I've got more, paying for software I don't need, because I want to test everything.
Yeah.
Or you're so busy running your business, this is an overwhelming concept and you want to test it, but you always get to the end of your day and it gets squeezed out. So being intentional and having guardrails, and no matter which camp you're in, for me is important. So if you've got to put parameters around it and make sure that you aren't just going and chasing that shiny object where your traffic might not be yet. So pull yourself back if you're on that side of it. And if you're on the side of it where your guilt comes from the fact of, hey, it just keeps getting pushed out of my day, and I don't want to fall behind, but I'm so busy with what's working now. You got to schedule intentional time to go test. I mean, my wife and I, one night, spent from 7 p.m. to midnight on Friday nights in two different industries, sitting on our computers testing out back when things were emerging. Um, Spend some time with chat gpt and doing some training on it and testing on it, and that was fun for us, but it did get squeezed out of our day to day for a while. And so understanding what it can do and leveraging it is important. I've spent over 100 hours training and just talking back and forth with it and testing it and understanding what it can do. And so if I take myself out of being in a business, there are some things, yes, that scare me, right? I'm not going as far as giving my voice and having it be me in video or vocal content, but it's amazing what it can do in terms of writing for me. I've given it all 24,000 words of my book. I've given it years of blog posts and social media posts. So now it can accelerate content creation, and it's not just creating crap out there that I have to go, rewrite entirely or spend 3 times as long on to go rewrite and fix. It's giving me my content back in a format and vehicle that I can use to really scale much faster. I was personally considering a virtual assistant a couple of years ago, and I'm so glad I didn't get into a contract there, because I can go back and forth in real time and correct things in AI and get the right content within minutes, versus going back and forth over days of somebody else manually creating the content.
Yeah, I mean it's a tool to use. I've done some other podcasts on how chiropractors can use AI, ChatGPT, all these things to do your weekly emails, to do task oriented stuff, to set up posts for social media in text format with pictures, things to just help you speed up. You still have to create the content. But what I found AI has done in our practice to really help is to keep our workload about the same that it was in 2019, where we were still shooting the videos, we're still posting on Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff, repurposing content. And now you have all these AI things that can splice your videos into reels, stories, and all these things. And you can just blast them across all the platforms now. So I find the time that I spent creating content, especially video or educational stuff, is about the same it was in 2019, thanks to AI since 2023 when I got into it. Thanks to that, because I felt like 2021, 2022, we're just doing more and more work to try and get content done. And the AI, now when you look back, you're like, hey, man, you've really saved me a lot of time, because to get this all across all the platforms, I mean, I think I would just have a studio in my office and I'd just be a professional YouTuber, because I mean, there's no other way to get this done. I don't know how the heck we do this. So if you use it properly, it does save you a lot of time. And it really doesn't a lot of people are like, oh man, how much does it cost? Is it a lot of software? It's really not. It's these little programs that you use. Like I use Opus to clip some stuff. I use ChatGPT, which is free version, or $20 a month, whatever you want to do. It works. It works for us. So it's very affordable, very very doable.
Well,
Anything else? I think we did we miss the last step in the marketing success plan?
yeah, so it just rounds out with the with R, which is review, which is essentially reporting and being able to you can measure everything. We talked about it kind of in the strategy phase when we quantified what we want to measure, and this is making sure your reporting systems are set up for that, especially if you utilize third party software or practice management software that doesn't out of the box integrate with Google Analytics or what you're doing to track things, or your phone system, or how you want to track things. Even if you're just asking everyone who calls or fills out a form, having a system where you can close the loop on that, to really be able to track ROI, as we talked about earlier. And then the last step is called transformation, and that's making sure that we didn't do all this work in the first few stages, to get to then say, okay, we're now going to implement, and it's disorganized. So this is about getting a literal plan on paper, even if it's a one pager, where you've recapped what you've defined as your plan, and get it into practice, so you don't get busy in 2 months and put it on the shelf, or the next shiny flashy thing coming at us is like, hey, let's do that. Okay, well, then it's time out. Even if it's a 5-minute conversation of how does that change the priorities of the things we're already doing, how does it change budget allocation and where we're putting our focus, or who's going to do it if we're already maxed out? And so having a documented plan makes it not just one person's job and doing what's in their head, but gives some accountability to it and makes it actionable. So that's the transformation step in the T. So it's strategy, tactics, application, review, and transformation.
Awesome. Awesome. You can buy the book, right? You can just get it right from your website or on Amazon.
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. You can, yeah, I've got a standalone website for it too. It's a long title, Digital Marketing Success Plan. So I've shortened it to the DMSP.com. So you can
Okay.
find the
Cool.
framework there. I've got some free resources that you can grab there. And it'll link you over to Amazon as well.
Awesome. Thanks for your time. This was great stuff.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Take care.